This is When the Bow Breaks podcast, and I'm your host, Alexis Erlin. Welcome to the show. This episode is called CPTSD, the Ultimate Time Loop, and the Starship that keeps exploding. Here's what most people miss about CPTSD. It's not that you're stuck in the past. The past keeps reloading into the present. Your nervous system doesn't store memories like a photo album. The way trauma works is stuff gets buried. It stores them like a ship's red alert system, not like a family photo album on display. Okay? All of this reminds me of one of my favorite Star Trek episodes. If you didn't know, my name is Alexis Erlin and I like Star Trek. This Star Trek episode totally explains this better than most psychology textbooks. So, in Star Trek The Next Generation, there's an episode called Cause and Effect. So this is how the episode goes. I don't want to spoil everything, but only how it refers to this episode. The Enterprise keeps exploding like over and over again. It keeps happening like Groundhog Day. The crew doesn't remember previous loops, but something inside them does. They feel they're not relaxed, they're not comfortable. They're experiencing deja vu. They're having instincts they can't explain. Tiny differences and anomalies start to appear. A hesitation or a phrase or a choice until eventually they find a way out. That's CPTSD. You don't consciously remember every loop, but your body does. So it reacts before you can think about what's actually happening. Your body has a built-in system, a built-in alert system, your own custom red alert, essentially. So why is your own built-in system so confusing and so freaking, annoying? They're supposed to be annoying, right? They're trying to get your attention. But with CPTSD, your nervous system learned that predicting danger was survival. So now a certain tone of voice or a pause or a power imbalance you're not comfortable with, or even the anticipation of something good happening can trigger the same internal response as an emergency. So the ship goes to red alert, even if nothing is actually wrong, technically wrong. That's why it feels scary and disorienting. You're not weak. Your system is actually doing what it's supposed to do. Your system is doing what it's trained to do, okay? So the tricky part, just like in the episode, some of the exits feel like solutions, but they aren't really solutions. Like sometimes in certain cycles, shutting down is kind of our go-to, or people pleasing. We just end up doing what everybody else wants to keep the peace so that there's no arguing or disagreement or whatever. Or some people, they just plain disappear. Or there are those type of people, I don't need anyone. They stop the explosion temporarily. This can stop the explosion temporarily. So your system logs it as being like a success, but you're not exactly out of that cycle. You're not out of the loop. You've just reset the timeline. You need to watch more Star Trek to understand timelines better. That's why so many survivors say, I thought I healed from this. Like, why am I back here again? Because awareness doesn't come all at once. It comes in increments, step by step, day by day, just like in the episode. Like you notice something that's off, something like, Hmm. And then you're also correlating that with how you feel inside. So the Star Trek crew doesn't escape by force. They don't just get mad like, "I don't like this. Let's leave. Let's just end this." It doesn't happen that way. They escape through recognition. They escape through paying attention to all those things. And they do it enough where they can figure out a way to get out of it. The small signals, the pattern awareness, pausing long enough to choose differently. Sometimes we don't give ourselves enough time to make good decisions for ourselves. Sometimes we say we want to make better decisions, but we don't give ourselves the time to really think and dive in. We're just used to, again, people pleasing, just making the decision. Don't drag your feet. Don't dawdle. Don't be a burden on anyone. Just get it done. That's not always healthy. You can't really do that with PTSD or CPTSD. Healing CPTSD works the same way. It's not about escaping the loop forever. It's about learning to say, okay, this is a memory state. It's not a prophecy. I'm remembering something that tells me that this situation may or may not be safe, but it's not prophesying that that it isn't safe. You know what I'm saying? So you have to place the reaction where it belongs to then, not now. You have to think about things like, I'm safe enough in this moment to slow down and think and assess my situation. I can give you an example of what CPTSD looks like for me on a small scale, just as an example. So, if you're having a hard time understanding like the time loop thing and Star Trek isn't really your thing, maybe hairspray will be easier, an easier analogy. So, how trauma works? Let's start how I have a trauma, or I used to have a trauma with like hairspray. I'll tell you where it came from. I can laugh about it because some of it is just stupid sibling stuff, but my sister did this to me over and over and over, and it actually did cause me a lot of trauma. And I actually have bald patches, and I have scars, and I have burn marks from her. But she was the one responsible for doing my hair all the time. And my sister was 14 years older than me. And this was the 1980s, y'all. This is when hair was under attack, y'all. And I mean, it was all the heat, it was all the chemicals, it was all the, it was perms, and it was teasing, and it was hairspray, and it was blowouts, and not the kind of blowouts we're talking. These kind of blowouts make your hair freeze up straight. And so my sister would do these kinds of hairdos on me, and she would burn me in the process. And it's not because I was, not sitting still or whatever. She would use that as the excuse, but she would press that thing into me. So this gave me trauma. They say, oh, kids are resilient. It's like, no, kids have blackouts. They stop forgetting, they stop remembering things because it's too traumatic for them to remember. It was too painful for me to remember that my sister hurt me like that all the time. So I started to forget about that, or I'd started to suppress those feelings, those memories, because you can't deal with it. You're a kid. It's like your sister still has to do your hair every Sunday. So you got to deal with this. And so my sister would do my hair, and she would hurt me, and she would scream at me and yell at me and rip out chunks of my hair. Um, Nobody was watching her. They thought I was exaggerating and that she was doing her best. Um, you know, Mom was busy with the baby, and dad doesn't help kids get ready. He doesn't do that shit. He's a man. He's having his coffee and eating his bacon, probably. I don't know where my brother was, probably trying to cope with, oh God, we got to go to church. My trauma started to manifest physically. or not manifest physically, but it started to spill out physically. I was suppressing my needs and everything so much that it was making me sick. Everything was making me sick because I wasn't addressing anything the way that I was supposed to. I wasn't in therapy yet. I hadn't identified these issues. I didn't pinpoint the root of my stress or anything like that. I didn't understand anything about boundaries and what that looked like. That wasn't a thing for me growing up. We weren't allowed to do that. Us girls, no. Uh, so I have all this trauma and I get a whip of hairspray and it would make me sick to the point where I would have to go throw up. And I would be mentioning this to the doctor, be like, is chemical sensitivity a thing? Am I chemically sensitive or, and he'd be like, well, there's like a lot of testing we would have to do to actually confirm that. I was like, I just don't understand why I get so sick of a smell of hairspray. It never used to bother me and now it bothers me. And maybe it's because I had kids, but it didn't just bother me. It didn't just make me sick. It made me sick. It made me feel unwell, not just, oh, I don't like the smell. It's making me nauseous. My whole body was revolted by the smell of it. My whole body it's like the kind of puke that you have when you're afraid. And this was also connected to me having to puke every time my family came over for like a family dinner. I never understood that it was trauma. And my ex-husband pinpointed something to me. He's like, "You get like this every time they come over. Like, what's the deal with that? Like, you don't wanna talk about something?" You know what? He recognized that. I didn't recognize I was all so busy with everything, I wasn't even paying attention. He noticed that pattern for me, and he helped with that. That helped raise a light bulb for me. It was like, "I better pay attention to this nausea thing. Maybe there's more to this." So, every time I would get sick, until I realized where that came from. And if you've ever had a moment of realization, you finally get all of these memories that come flooding back to you all at once, all of a sudden everything piles on top of you as to what that trauma was and where it comes from and why it makes you sick. That is like taking all of the feelings that you've ever had being abused and condensing it into one moment. And you're standing and you happen to be standing there at the kitchen washing dishes and your kids are playing in the next room. And all of a sudden you feel all of that again. Everything. You can feel the burn marks. You can feel her yelling at you. You can hear her yelling at you. You can feel her pull your hair. You can feel your feelings hurt because she lied about the way that she was treating you and that your parents didn't do anything and she made fun of you for complaining about it. All those feelings just came back in that one moment and I was really overwhelmed. My ship kept exploding over and over and over. And I was just like, all right, I know what's happening now, but how do I stop this? How does this stop? I want off. I don't like this cycle. I don't like having these feelings all the time. I don't like having these memories. I understand this now. I want it to stop. I don't like getting sick every time I smell hairspray. I don't like getting sick every time my family comes over for dinner. I don't like that I'm so ill because of all this stuff. I want off. I want off the exploding ship. That first wave of memory was very, very difficult and very scary and very overwhelming. I did have to go upstairs and I had to go lock myself in the bathroom for a little bit just to cry and just to get it out and also to take some deep breaths and understand that my subconscious released that for me, knowing I could handle it. And then I was finally like going to be able to heal myself from it. I was going to recognize where it was, where it came from, and how it affected me, and how wrong it was. And every time I had those feelings again, it just eventually it got easier. Every time I had a flashback, every time it got easier, and it got better. Shit stopped exploding. I don't get sick the smell of hairspray anymore. In fact, I use it every day, just a little bit, just because the weather here, just because frizz, you know? I'm a girly girl, okay? Fuck it. It doesn't make me sick because I know where it comes from and I know that this stuff isn't going to hurt me. I made the connection. This is not danger in the present moment. That is in memory. That is something that happened in this timeline or that timeline, not this one, if that makes sense. It's kind of like a lengthy story, but I felt that it was important to share that. If becoming aware feels worse at first, like it was for me, it turns out that's normal. I thought I was going crazy. I thought I was freaking out. I thought there was something wrong with me. It's like, no, it's my alert system's going off. It's like, yeah, bingo, you got it. You got it. You're getting it. You're getting it. That's normal. When you make all those connections, everything intersects, all those memories, all the feelings, you put everything together again and why and how it was wrong. And then all the feelings that came with it. That's normal. Autopilot is shutting off. Autopilot kept you alive, though, for a time. But awareness is where choice returns, not control, choice. So I can't control the memories that come. I can't control what happens to me. I can't control how other people treat me in the future, but I can control my choices. I can control how I behave. I can control how I approach the situation. I can choose what I have to say about it. And those things are healing for me. If this episode helped you put language to something that you've been experiencing quietly, please consider following or subscribing to When the Bell Breaks. Uh, that I would appreciate that. Or, share this episode with somebody who you think needs to hear it, or somebody who likes Star Trek. And if this analogy hit home, or you want to tell me about your own personal time loops, you can definitely email us at anytime, wtbbpodcast@gmail.com. You don't need to be a polished professional speaker, okay? You don't need all the answers, but being seen counts. I want people to be seen on this show, all types of people. People with CPTSD aren't broken. We're just dealing with a lot. Our red alert's going off, okay? There are people who survived repeated impacts and are now learning how to read the instruments again. Sometimes the ship shakes. Sometimes alarms go off, but you're still here and you're learning how to choose differently. This has been another episode of When the Bell Breaks. Take care of yourself on this New Year's Eve. I'll talk to you soon.